The Archives Speak. Chief Archivist Thandora Voss had spent 3 centuries cataloging the galaxy's greatest mistakes. Her crystalline appendages traced the ancient markings on the wall of the eternal archives, each ridge and groove telling the story of another civilization's downfall. But today, something was different. The warnings were screaming. The quantum crystal walls of the archives pulsed with an urgent crimson glow, a color she hadn't seen in over 50 years of service. Her assistant, Junior Archivist Zentil, scuttled across the ceiling on their gravity-defying limbs, their bioluminescent patches flashing in distress. Chief Voss, Zentil chittered, the temporal sensors are detecting unusual activity in the dormant zones. Specifically, Section H. Thandora's crystalline form dimmed slightly. Section H, Humanity Sector. "Show me," she commanded, her voice resonating through the crystal chambers. The archival interface sprang to life, projecting a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. At its edge, a sector pulsed with warning signals. The quantum-sealed records were becoming unstable, something that should have been impossible given the technology used to preserve them. Access historical record, H359. Thandora instructed. The archives responded, unfurling streams of data in the ancient script of the precursors. As she read, her crystalline form began to vibrate with concern. The warning was always the same, repeated across 17 dead civilizations. Do not wake the warriors of Earth. Their solutions defy reality itself. Zentil's appendages curled inward, a sign of deep anxiety. But why now? The seals have held for 10,000 years. What could possibly? The answer came in the form of a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. As the holographic message materialized, Thandora recognized the unmistakable form of High Counselor Arkstar, their multiple eyes blinking in rapid succession, a clear sign of panic among the vertebrate species. Chief Archivist, Arkstar's voice trembled. We face a crisis unprecedented in our history. The nullifiers have returned. Thandora's entire form went cold. The nullifiers, cosmic entities that consumed reality itself, leaving nothing but void in their wake. They were supposed to be a myth, a horror story told to young archivists about the dangers of tampering with dimensional barriers. The outer colonies are already lost, Arkstar continued. Our weapons pass through them like light through crystal. Our strongest shields shatter like dried leaves. The Council. They paused, all 4 hands ringing together. The Council is considering awakening the humans. No. Thandora's response came instantly, her form flashing bright with alarm. Counselor, the warnings are explicit. The Mraxian Empire tried to wake them during the Quantum Wars. Their entire civilization vanished overnight. The only record they left behind was carved into the core of a dead star. Their solutions are worse than any problem. Then explain to me, Chief Archivist, Arkstar's voice hardened, why every civilization that faced extinction left the same addendum to their warnings. But if the void itself hungers, wake the dreamers of Earth. They alone know how to make the impossible scream. Thandora accessed deeper archives, records so old they were encoded in the quantum structure of spacetime itself. The history spoke of humanity's last battle, fought 10,000 years ago against an enemy that threatened to unravel the galaxy. The details were scarce, but one fact remained clear. Humanity had won, but their victory was so devastating that they chose to enter voluntary dormancy, sealing themselves away in their home system. The Council has made its decision, Arkstar announced. We're sending an expedition to Earth. We need you to provide all historical data on human military capabilities and their unusual problem-solving methodologies. As Thandora began the data retrieval process, she discovered records that made her question everything she thought she knew about warfare. Humans had once defeated a time-traveling army by weaponizing paradoxes. They had turned black holes into bullets. One record suggested they had won a war by introducing their enemies to something called cat videos, which apparently crashed their opponent's entire cultural matrix. Zentil, she called to her assistant, who was still processing the implications of awakening humanity, prepare the restricted archives, and update my will. As the archives hummed with activity, preparing data for the Council's expedition, Pandora couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to learn why every dead empire had left the same final warning. The humans don't solve problems. They make problems solve themselves, usually through methods that make reality itself question its life choices. The awakening was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Void's hunger. First Admiral Lysandra Reese of the Galactic Defense Fleet had seen her share of horrors in her 3 centuries of service, but nothing compared to watching reality being eaten. Through the quantum-reinforced viewport of the flagship Eternal Dawn, she watched as the nullifiers consumed another star system. They weren't supposed to exist. The nullifiers were theoretical mathematics gone wrong, equations that gained sentience and decided the only solution was to reduce everything to zero. They appeared as tears in space-time, fractal patterns of absolute darkness that consumed light, matter, and even the laws of physics themselves. Status report, she commanded, her 4 arms working multiple holographic interfaces simultaneously. Her species, the Quateri, were known for their ability to process multiple data streams at once. Right now, she wished she had 40 arms instead of 4. The Helix Defense Network has failed, reported her second-in-command, Strategic Officer Dorn. His crystalline form pulsed with distress patterns. The nullifiers, they're learning. They're using our own defensive algorithms against us. The latest footage from the front lines showed what happened when the nullifiers encountered resistance. They didn't just destroy, they absorbed, adapted, and evolved. Every weapon used against them became part of their arsenal. Every defense system was turned into a new method of attack. Show me the calculation projections, Lysandra ordered, though she already knew what they would say. The holographic display confirmed her fears. At current consumption rates, the nullifiers would reach the core worlds within 3 standard months. A priority transmission cut through her dark thoughts. The familiar form of High Counselor Arksthar appeared, accompanied by Chief Archivist Thandora Voss. The fact that these two were appearing together made Lysandra's peripheral nerves tingle with apprehension. Admiral, Arksthar began without preamble, we're implementing the Lazarus Protocol. Lysandra's upper arms froze over their control panels. The Lazarus Protocol, awakening humanity. It wasn't just a last resort. It was the thing you did when you ran out of last resorts. The archives have provided preliminary data on human military capabilities. Thandora added, her crystalline form projecting data streams. But I must warn you, much of it seems improbable. The records began playing on Lysandra's command screen. She watched footage from humanity's last active period, 10,000 years ago. The images made her question either her sanity or the archive's authenticity. This can't be accurate, she muttered, watching humans turn fundamental forces into weapons. They weaponized probability. How do you weaponize probability? According to the records, Thandora explained, they called it Murphy's Law and somehow turned it into a tactical advantage. The details are unclear. Most of the observers were too busy having existential crises to maintain proper documentation. Strategic Officer Dorn, who had been analyzing the data, suddenly emitted a high-pitched crystalline tone of disbelief. Are these readings correct? They once won a space battle by exploiting a rounding error in the universe's physics engine. The technical term they used was cheesing the game mechanics of reality. Thandora confirmed. The archives still haven't fully translated what that means. Lysandra watched new footage of the nullifiers consuming another defense fleet. The ships didn't even have time to scream. They simply ceased to exist, become part of the expanding void. The decision crystallized in her mind. Begin preparations for the Lazarus Protocol, she ordered, and may whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. The expedition to Earth was assembled with unprecedented speed. The Eternal Dawn, flagship of the Galactic Defense Fleet, led a convoy of ships carrying the most advanced awakening technology the galaxy could produce. As they approached the sealed system, Lysandra studied the ancient warning beacons that surrounded it. "Caution," she read aloud. "Beyond this point lies humanity. If you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong. If you proceed, something will go even more terribly wrong, but in a way that technically solves your problem." The beacons weren't just warnings, they were acknowledgments of humanity's unique approach to problem solving. One beacon, left by a now extinct species called the axiomatics, simply read, "They solved our philosophical crisis by punching it. We still don't understand how that worked." As the fleet moved into position around Earth's dormant star system, Lysandra received the final authorization from the Galactic Council. The message was brief. "Wake them. Whatever happens next can't be worse than universal annihilation." How wrong they might be about that, Lysandra murmured, but gave the order anyway. The awakening sequences began, massive engines powering up to break the seals humanity had placed around their system. In the darkness between stars, the nullifiers continued their feast, unaware that the galaxy was about to introduce them to something they couldn't calculate: human ingenuity. As Lysandra watched the seals begin to crack, she remembered the last line of Chief Archivist Voss's report. The humans don't just think outside the box. They take the box apart, rebuild it into something that shouldn't work, and then use it to hit their enemies with, usually while making jokes about it. Awakening the sleepers. Dr. Rohan Patel's consciousness emerged from 10,000 years of stasis like a swimmer breaking through ice. His first coherent thought was about coffee. His second was wondering why there were so many aliens in the revival chamber. "Vital signs stable," announced a hovering medical drone in what he recognized as universal standard, though the accent was 10 millennia out of date. "Neural patterns normal. Memory engrams intact." Rowan sat up slowly, noting the array of bizarre instruments surrounding his stasis pod. The aliens, at least 3 different species by his count, watched him with expressions that ranged from terror to fascination. One of them, a crystalline being, was actually vibrating with what his groggy mind interpreted as anxiety. "So," he managed, his voice rough from 10,000 years of disuse, "either this is the worst hangover in human history, or something's gone terribly wrong." A tall, 4-armed figure stepped forward. "I am First Admiral Lysandra Reese of the Galactic Defense Fleet. We've awakened you because the galaxy's about to end." Rohan interrupted, already reaching for the emergency kit beside his pod. "Because we left pretty specific instructions about not waking us unless reality itself was at risk." The aliens exchanged glances. The crystalline one emitted a high-pitched tone that Rohan's translator rendered as nervous laughter. "Actually," Lysandra continued, "reality-consuming void entities are eating the galaxy. We've tried everything in our power to stop them, but—" "Hold that thought." Rohan raised a hand, pulling something from the emergency kit. It looked suspiciously like a very old coffee maker. "First rule of apocalypse prevention: never start without caffeine." As the machine hummed to life, drawing confused stares from the alien delegation, more stasis pods began their awakening sequences. Dr. Juniper Blackwood, Earth's leading quantum physicist, emerged cursing in 3 dead languages. Commander Dante Santos, tactical specialist, woke up already reaching for weapons that hadn't existed for millennia. "Status report," Dante demanded, accepting a cup of coffee from Rowan. "How bad is it?" Lysandra activated a holographic display showing the nullifier's advance. The humans watched in silence as entire star systems vanished into fractal patterns of void. "Well," Juniper said after a long sip of coffee, "that's definitely reality-ending catastrophe level. Good call on waking us. Question though, have you tried hitting them with a really big stick?" The alien delegation seemed unsure whether this was a joke. Strategic Officer Dorn's crystalline form flickered in what might have been confusion. "We've deployed our most advanced weapon systems: quantum disruptors, reality anchors, temporal bombs." No, no, Juniper waved her coffee cup dismissively. I mean something simple. Sometimes the universe gets too caught up in elegant solutions when what you really need is a crude but effective approach. More humans were awakening now. Dr. Fatima Hassan, specialist in improbable physics. Lieutenant James O'Connor, whose official title was that guy who makes things go boom good. Each emerged with the same oddly calm acceptance of the situation, as if waking up to face cosmic horror was just another Tuesday. Show me the data on these nullifiers again, Rowan requested, now on his third cup of coffee. His eyes scanned the holographic displays with increasing interest. Oh, I see the problem. You're trying to fight them with logic. They're sentient mathematics, Lysandra pointed out. How else would we fight them? The humans shared a look that made every alien in the room suddenly question their decision to wake them. Mathematics has rules, Fatima explained, already scribbling equations that seemed to be giving nearby reality a headache. Rules can be bent, and if you bend them just right, you can turn them into a pretzel, James finished, grinning. A reality-breaking, physics-defying pretzel. Dot had taken command of a console, reviewing the galaxy's current military capabilities. We're going to need some supplies. Nothing fancy, just some basic antimatter, a few thousand tons of coffee, and maybe access to a small star or two. A small star. Dorn's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. Don't worry, Rowan assured him, though his smile did nothing to reduce the alien's anxiety. We'll give it back. Mostly. Probably in a slightly different shape, but technically still a star. The awakening chambers continued their work, bringing more of humanity's brightest and most creative minds back to consciousness. Each emergence was accompanied by requests for coffee and increasingly improbable suggestions for dealing with the nullifiers. So, Lysandra said, watching as the humans began what they called a brainstorming session, but looked more like organized chaos. The archives warned us about this. About your unique approaches to problem solving. Oh, Juniper looked up from a diagram that appeared to be reimagining the laws of thermodynamics as more of a suggestion than a rule. What did they say? That your solutions often defy reality itself. Ah, Rohan nodded sagely. That's because reality is more flexible than most people think. You just have to know where to push. Unconventional solutions. The galactic war room aboard the Eternal Dawn had never seen anything quite like a human brainstorming session. The walls were covered in equations that seemed to be arguing with each other. Holographic models of increasingly impossible weapons floated in the air, and in the center of it all, 6 humans were playing what they called quantum ping-pong with a small artificially generated black hole. Stop that. First Admiral Lysandra commanded as the micro-singularity whizzed past her head. What are you even doing? Testing quantum reaction times, Dr. Juniper Blackwood explained, returning the black hole with a perfect backhand. Also, taking a coffee break. We can multitask. Dr. Rohan Patel caught the singularity in a containment field and pocketed it. We think we've figured out how to beat the nullifiers. Fair warning. It's going to sound crazy. Everything you've done so far sounds crazy, Strategic Officer Dorn noted, his crystalline form still vibrating from watching the ping-pong match. Yesterday you suggested we could defeat them by, and I quote, making the universe stub its toe. That was just a warm-up idea. Commander Dante Santos grinned, pulling up a holographic display. This is the real plan. We call it Operation Reality Check. The display showed a complex network of devices scattered across multiple star systems. Lieutenant James O'Connor, explosives specialist extraordinaire, began the explanation. See, the nullifiers work by consuming and incorporating everything they encounter, right? So we're going to give them something they really shouldn't eat. Dr. Fatima Hassan stepped forward, pointing to various parts of the diagram. We've designed what we're calling reality anchors. But instead of trying to stabilize space-time like your versions, ours do the opposite. They create locally unstable pockets of existence. You want to make reality less real. Lysandra's 4 arms all gestured in confusion simultaneously. Exactly. Rowan beamed. The nullifiers consume and adapt to everything they encounter. So we're going to give them a cosmic case of indigestion. Think of it like feeding someone who's allergic to everything a buffet of all their allergens at once. The alien delegation watched in horror as the humans began detailing their plan. They weren't just going to fight the nullifiers. They were going to turn the fundamental forces of the universe into one giant practical joke. Phase 1, Dant explained, pulling up tactical displays. We seed their path with these reality anchors. Each one creates a pocket of space where the laws of physics are, let's say, creatively interpreted. Phase 2, Juniper continued. We use modified quantum generators to create what we're calling probability storms. Areas where cause and effect have a falling out and decide to see other people. And Phase 3, James added with concerning enthusiasm. We introduced them to something we invented during our last war. We call it the logic bomb. What's a logic bomb? Dorn asked, immediately regretting the question. It's a weapon that runs on pure paradox, Fatima explained. Imagine a box that both exists and doesn't exist simultaneously. Then imagine that box having an argument with itself about whether it's actually a sphere, while also being completely certain it's actually Tuesday. The aliens stared in silence. The nullifiers operate on pure mathematical logic, Rowan explained more gently. They consume reality by reducing it to solvable equations. We're going to give them an equation that doesn't just refuse to be solved. It actively objects to the concept of solutions existing. Implementation began immediately, though not without incident. The humans insisted on naming each reality anchor after what they called dad jokes, claiming it added to their effectiveness. The galactic fleet watched in amazement as humanity turned the defense against cosmic horror into something resembling a galaxy-wide comedy routine. Reality anchor, why did the chicken cross? The Mobius strip is online, James reported, monitoring the deployment. Beginning probability storm generation in Sector 7. The effects were immediate and spectacular. Where the anchors activated, space itself seemed to develop a sense of humor. Nullifiers that encountered these regions began exhibiting what Dr. Hassan described as cosmic hiccups. They're trying to consume the anomalies, Lysandra observed, watching the tactical display. But they can't process them. Of course not, Juniper smiled. They're trying to reduce everything to mathematical certainty. We're feeding them pure uncertainty wrapped in quantum puns. It's like trying to alphabetize a sneeze. Legacy of stars. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so crowded. Representatives from every surviving civilization packed the quantum-enhanced space, all eager to witness the official debriefing on what historians were already calling the reality war. At the center of attention stood the human delegation, looking surprisingly casual for people who had just saved existence itself. Let me see if I understand this correctly, High Counselor Arkstar began, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. You defeated the nullifiers, entities that consumed entire star systems, by essentially giving them philosophical food poisoning. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds weird, Dr. Rowan Patel replied, sipping from his ever-present coffee cup. We prefer to think of it as teaching reality to tell jokes. The final battle, if it could be called that, had been less of a fight and more of a cosmic comedy show. The nullifiers, upon encountering the full network of reality anchors and probability storms, had experienced what Dr. Juniper Blackwood termed a mathematical meltdown. The logic bomb was the masterstroke, Lieutenant James O'Connor explained proudly. When they tried to consume it, they had to face the ultimate question. What happens when an entity that reduces everything to mathematical certainty encounters something that is certifiably uncertain about its own certainty? They had an existential crisis, Commander Dante Santos added. Turns out even cosmic horrors can't handle paradoxes wrapped in quantum puns delivered through weaponized dad jokes. Chief Archivist Thandora Voss, who had been studying the aftermath, projected her findings. The nullifiers didn't just retreat. They appear to have recursively questioned themselves out of existence, though we're still finding pockets of space-time that seem to be laughing. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives were demanding the humans share their reality-bending technology. Others were subtly trying to edge away from the species that had defeated cosmic horror with comedy. About that, Dr. Fatima Hassan interjected. "We should probably warn you. There might be some side effects." Side effects? First Admiral Lysandra asked, all four arms tensing. "Well," Rowan explained, "we may have accidentally taught certain sectors of the galaxy to have a sense of humor. You might notice some spatial anomalies occasionally telling knock-knock jokes. And there's at least one nebula that's developed a fondness for slapstick." Strategic Officer Dorn's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "Is that why the Horsehead Nebula keeps trying to trip passing starships?" "Think of it as reality developing a personality," Juniper suggested brightly. The universe was getting a bit too serious anyway. As the council debated the implications of a cosmos that had learned to laugh, the humans were already planning their next steps. They had decided not to return to stasis, feeling that the galaxy could use some creative problem solvers. "We're establishing what we call the Department of Improbable Solutions," Dant announced to the council. "For when conventional methods fail and you need someone to think so far outside the box that the box starts questioning its boxiness." The archives were updated with new warnings, though these were slightly different from the old ones. "If reality-ending disaster threatens, wake the humans," they read. "But be prepared for reality to never quite be the same afterward." In her private chambers, Chief Archivist Voss added one final note to the official record. The humans didn't just save existence, they taught it how to smile. Though we're still trying to understand why they insist this makes everything more fun. The galaxy was indeed forever changed. The humans had introduced an element of creative chaos that could never be fully contained. Stars occasionally winked at passing ships. Black holes had developed a tendency to hum tunelessly, and somewhere in the vast cosmos, a group of humans was probably already figuring out how to solve the next impossible problem by making the universe laugh at itself. "You know," Rohan mused, standing with his fellow humans at a viewport, watching a supernova that seemed to be trying to shape itself into a smiley face, "I think we've made quite an impression." Indeed, First Admiral Lysandra agreed, joining them. "The Council has officially classified humans as solve problems in ways that give reality a headache, but somehow work anyway." "We can live with that," Juniper smiled. "After all, someone has to keep the universe on its toes. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Though," she paused thoughtfully, "I wonder if we could actually give the universe toes." The humans all turned to look at her with interested expressions. The nearby aliens quickly decided it was time to leave before they had to document another round of reality-bending problem-solving. As they departed, they could hear the humans beginning another brainstorming session, their laughter echoing through corridors that seemed, somehow, to be laughing with them. In the depths of space, a nebula tried to tell a knock-knock joke to a passing asteroid, and existence itself smiled, knowing that while the humans were awake, things would never be boring again.